Hi, welcome to Something to Talk About. My name is Taco, and this is my A Song of Ice and Fire series where I cover characters from all over the A Song of Ice and Fire lore, as long as they weren't in any of the shows, and as long as they're not POV characters. I try to cover kind of smaller characters, right? This guy isn't that small of a character. He's actually kind of important, but he never made it into the show, though, so he counts. But yeah, if you've never been here before, please like and subscribe. What's up? And I just go on these big long rants, and I do these all in one take, which is why I'm refilming this whole thing all over again. I should just edit, but I'm not. I don't edit. I do read off cards, so I don't lose track of where I am. And yeah, that's it. Welcome. If you want a nice polished video, go watch somebody else's. There's some very, very good A Song of Ice and Fire creators out there. Go check them out. I'm sure other people are covering Ben Plumm because he's great. So yeah, let's talk about. So I've been doing 2 a week of these A Song of Ice and Fire lores, and this week, this is going to come out on a Tuesday. Later the week is another character with a nickname with a color in his name. So I've got Brown Ben Plumm, and I'm covering Red Ronnet Connington this Saturday. So yeah, it's my color week. All right, let's get to it. Brown Ben Plumm, also known as Brown Ben Plumm, is a descendant of House Plumm and the captain and commander of the Second Sons. So yeah, he's a sellsword company that later meets with Dany outside of Yunkai, and yeah, that's it. He's a sellsword commander, right? Ben is an older man, still fit. He has a wide, weathered face, brown skin, a broken nose, white gray hair. He has a salt and pepper beard. He has a large, dark, almond-shaped Dothraki eyes that he inherited from his mother. They are there are wrinkles in the corners of his eyes, so he's kind of older, and he's got a lot of features, right? Features. He's got Dothraki eyes. He's got a Westerosi name. So what's going on with him? The second slide is usually when I talk about the houses. He's not really part of Westeros. He's never been to Westeros before, but he is a descendant of a house from Westeros, House Plumm. House Plumm is a noble house from the Westerlands. Their words are "come try me." Maybe it's an uncanon, or it's like an uncanon one. Like, it's not from those sources. So sure, it's still a good one. Come try me, yo. Come try me. The aged Lord Asoiaf Plumm married Princess Aelina Targaryen in 176. If you want me to cover Aelina Targaryen, I would. I've only covered up one other Targaryen so far, and that is Aegon the Dragon Knight. This is from around-ish the same time. If you want me to cover Aelina Targaryen, I might. So let me know. She had a bunch of marriages, and her story seems really cool. And yeah, I'll talk more about her in a minute. But so Lord Asoiaf Plumm, long time ago, 30-something years ago, which doesn't seem like a long time, but in Targaryen world it is. 167, during the reign of King Aegon the Fourth Targaryen, also known as Aegon the Unworthy. So he is said to have died during the bedding and conceived a son after conceiving his son. However, rumors suggest that Lord Asoiaf had died before being able to consummate the marriage, and that the child instead had been fathered by King Aegon the Unworthy himself, lending to the saying that Asoiaf had a man part that is 6 foot long. Okay, so I didn't have this planned. I wrote this stuff, and I planned to cover Brown Ben Plumm weeks ago, right? And I just happened to today, as I was listening to Storm of the Swords, I'm going through the books again. As I was listening to Storm of the Swords, that's what it's called now. I got to a big Brown Ben chapter, like his first one. So I got to hear him talk about this today. It wasn't even planned. I listened to the Brown Ben chapter before, the day I talked about Brown Ben. And he doesn't know what the joke comes from. So he's talking about, oh yeah, one of my great grandpas, like everybody liked, and he, he married a dragon princess. And he goes, oh, and he had a 6 foot long member. And Danny blushes because he's talking to Daenerys, and she's like, you mean 6 inch? And he goes, no, 6 foot long. That's why everybody liked him. He was a cool guy. He doesn't know that it comes from the fact that he conceived a son after he died, and the joke is that he somehow was able to do it when he was 6 feet under. I find that so funny that the joke's punchline lives on, but the reason for the joke doesn't, and he's just like, that guy was packing. All right, so we talked about his house. Let's talk about the sellsword company. The Second Sons are a sellsword company found in the Free Cities. Their banner is a broken sword, and they only take commands from their captain. The Second Sons are not as well equipped as the Golden Company. Well on a campaign, their camp is a circle of tents, including a cook tent. Brown Ben, or whoever the commander is, Brown Ben Plumm's tent has painted canvas walls that are cracked and faded by years of sun and rain, as well as a floor covered in threadbare carpets of half a dozen clashing colors. It's kind of like symbolic of how like he's a mix of everything, right? And we're going to get to that here in a second of what I mean by that, but he's got a lot of the genetic gene pool. He's all over the place. He has a lot of different genes in his gene pool, and he's got a really colorful, cool tent. So the sellswords, the Second Sons, are one of the more important sellsword companies. They're like not quite the Golden Company, but they're like above the Brave Companions, right, if you will. So yeah, they're one of the bigger players in the sellsword game in Essos. So a little of everything. So Ben's mother is Dothraki, and his grandmother was half Ibonese. They're like D&D dwarves. Ibonese they're like stout and hairy, and they're like whalers. They're like if dwarves were from Greenland or like Iceland or something, I don't know why I chose that. I should have went with Norwegian, but like, they're from the northern part of the world, and they're whalers, but they're dwarves. Anyways, his grandmother was half Ibonese, half Cohoric. His grandfather was killed by a Dothraki prior to Ben's birth. Ben says he is part Bravosi, Southern Islander, Ibonese, Cohoric, Dornish, Dothraki, and Westerosi. He also claims to have a drop of Targaryen blood, which must be why the dragons, particularly Viserion, have an affinity for him. Like I said, I just listened to this chapter, and yeah, Viserion like lands on his head or his shoulder and like kind of like plays around with him, and she's like, "Whoa, he doesn't really. My dragons don't take kindly to people much," and he's like, it's because I got a little Targaryen blood, and she's like, what? And then he tells the story. So he states an older member of House Plumm, so he doesn't know that it was Ossifer of House Plumm married a dragon princess. He vaguely says that the wedding took place during the reign of Aegon Targaryen. Daenerys points out that there were 5 Aegons who reigned in Westeros, and asked which one. Ben fails to remember which one. Aegon IV remembered to remember the number. Tyrion Lannister Tyrion suspects him of being a descendant of a younger son of Viserys Plumm, and a possible distant relation to the famous Ossifer Plumm, and that Ben thus has 2 drops of dragon blood, not just one, as Viserys was rumored to have been fathered by King Aegon IV on Princess Alina, Ossifer's wife. So that's a picture of Alina there. Again, if you want me to do a video on her, I will. And that's Aegon the Unworthy. So Ossifer's descendants only was a Valyrian. So he would have quite a lot of Valyrian blood if he's a descendant of Ossifer, right? So that's what Tyrion's getting at. So quite a lot of dragon blood, if that's who it is. But how many Plums marry princesses? So it probably is. All right, selling his sword. Ben once served as a bodyguard to the uncle of Onzak, Oznak, Zopal. God, Marine names. In Marine, Mirish names. Before joining the Second Sons, when someone Ben knew was killed by Oznak for looking at a woman in the wrong way, Ben fled, escaping the city through the sewer system, and experience that still haunts him. While plundering after his first battle with the Second Sons, Plumm took armor from a dead sellsword and discovered a fortune of coins the man had sewn into his lining of the armor. In his naivety, Ben told a fellow sellsword whom he believed to be a friend, and the fellow sellsword told the sergeant, and his colleagues relieved him of his fortune. Ben loves gold, but in this incident made him realize that it is useless if you're not alive to enjoy it. So, yeah, he now knows to keep your mouth shut and your hands over your gold and not to tell anyone about it, because sellswords famously don't have a lot of honor. And no offense if you're a sellsword, but they're here for gold, and if the sergeant's like, cool, give it, and what if I don't want to? We'll kill you. That's what. All right. Ben claims to have fought in 100 battles, but he does not claim to have fought bravely in all of them. Yeah. So this is really important. In the chapter I just listened to, he said, there are old sellswords and there are brave sellswords, but there are no old brave sellswords. So he admits to be a little cowardice, which is kind of cool, and it's so different from like the honor-bound knights that we're used to. This is a sellsword, and he's gonna do what he needs to do to survive. And he's lived a long life, and he's gonna keep living his life, and that's what Ben do. All right, the Queen's Man. For now, Ben is elected as a new commander of the Second Sons after Miro disappears during the fight at Yunkai. Miro then shows back up and tries to kill Danny, and freaking Arston Whitebeard beats him down with a stick. It's great. All right. All right. So he sits on Daenerys' war council, and he actually has the idea of to use a sewer system of Marine to route as a route to besiege the city, and is how he escaped as a youth. So, like I said, he escaped being a sellsword before he left Marine through the sewer system. Something that still gets to him. He states how much it still haunts him, and it's still in his dreams and his nightmares, and he still can smell it. So it's an awful thing, but they are all sitting around trying to figure out how to get past these walls at Marine, and he goes, "We'll go under them. I've done it before. It's gonna be awful, but you should do it." So, yeah, that's Ben's idea. So they wouldn't have gotten Marine without Brown Ben Plumm. Daenerys sends Brown Ben and the Second Sons to guard against the south, against any incursions by Yunkai. When Plumm returns to the city and discovers Dany could no longer control her dragons and she has them locked up, he decides that her cause is lost and goes over to the Yunkai. It's kind of his thing. Yeah. It's kind of his thing. He likes to flip his cloak. This cloak was made for turning, not just what they do. All right, Cybas. During the slave market held outside Marine, Plumm sees Tyrion Lannister and Penny being sold and attempts to buy them, with a mind of delivering Tyrion's head to Dany as a wedding gift, or to Cersei Lannister to claim the reward of a lordship. However, he is outbid by Yazen Zogagaz, the Yellow Whale. I almost wanted to do a video on Yagazan, these names, but I haven't yet. And I mean, he's an interesting character. He's the guy who buys them, but he's like this big, huge, fat. He's like a hut. He is Yazan the Hut is kind of his deal. Ben is present when the whale feasts the Yunkish commanders, and he plays Cybas, which is kind of like chess, with Tyrion, but loses a game to Tyrion and a small fortune to Yazan. So Tyrion kind of finds his way to play against, because he sees, maybe this Plumm guy can help me out. So during the game of Cybas, they're really having a completely different conversation. They're talking about chess, but he's trying to get free. And he's like, hey, I can really help you out. Hey, I'm useful, blah, blah, blah. So, yeah. So that's that connection. So the deal, Ben, along with the other 3 sellsword commanders, is allowed to enter Marine when the peace is declared. He explains to Dany the reasons he turned his cloak. Plumm allows Tyrion, along with Jorah, to join the Second Sons after they escape their dying master. So the whale, the hut, dies, and the Penny, Jorah, and Tyrion escape. And Tyrion, because he made that connection to Brown Ben, runs over to the Second Sons and tries to join them. But he doesn't have any money, right? But he has promises. So Tyrion writes 60 documents promising large sums of gold to several high-ranking members of the company. To Plumm himself, he promises the largest reward of 100,000 gold dragons, 50 hides of fertile land, and a castle and lordship. All this Tyrion promises to honor when he becomes Lord of Casterly Rock. So he doesn't have anything. It's IOUs, but he's got promises, and he's like, I will give you 100,000 gold. I'll give you a castle. Just as soon as you help me win back Casterly freaking Rock. And he goes, Brown Ben's like, yeah, okay, sounds like a good deal. So that's it. He buys his way in with IOUs, and it works. So, yeah, that's all I got. I'm excited to see where Brown Ben goes, if he ever makes it, if they ever make it back to Westeros or not, we'll see. But hopefully we'll see. But yeah, this was a character who sometimes I cover really tiny characters who you blink and you miss them. And other times I cover characters who seem really important and you're surprised they weren't in the show. And I'm surprised this guy wasn't in the show. Brown Ben is pretty cool. So there you go. That's all I got for him. Let me know what you think of Brown Ben. Check out my other A Song of Ice and Fire videos. I got a lot now. Click one of these links up here to start going through those. And yeah, watch out for the loyalty of sellswords. They might turn their cloaks. Just turn yours first. Peace.